Hi everyone, let's take a look at Timberland by Tommy Emmanuel. This one kept popping up in the comment section as a request, so I took a look at it and it turned out to be quite doable in terms of Tommy Emmanuel songs. This one isn't too difficult at all. Now, as you might notice, I'm holding a different guitar than the one I was playing in the intro of this video, and that's because Tommy plays this one on a baritone guitar. Now, I don't have a baritone guitar, so I recorded the intro and the teaser video I released last week on a jumbo guitar tuned down to C. So the tune is in standard tuning. If you have a guitar at home that's in standard tuning, you can use this guitar to learn how to play the song. But if you want to get close to the sound Tommy has on the YouTube videos, then you will need to tune your guitar down. Tommy uses a baritone guitar, and a beautiful baritone guitar at that, which is tuned down in standard tuning, so the intervals in between the strings are exactly the same as on a standard tuning guitar, but the tuning goes from a low B note to a high B note. I tried this on my baritone guitar, on my jumbo guitar, and it just didn't work. The tuning was too low, the strings were too slack, so the lowest, as it turns out, I could go was from C to C. If you want to try this, then make sure you have a 13 gauge set of strings on your guitar, because anything lighter will surely mess it up. As I recall, Tommy carries around a guitar that's tuned down 1.5 step, so tuning down to C is 2 steps. So I'm guessing that when he plays the song live, once all the Corona stuff disappears, I'm guessing that he will probably use the guitar that's been tuned down to 1.5 step. So just see what works for you and see what tuning your guitar can handle. If it goes down 1 step, great. 1.5 or 2 steps, even better. For the purpose of this tutorial, I will be showing you everything on just a standard tuned guitar, so no down tuning is needed for the tutorial, and then as soon as you get it down, you can slap on some heavier strings, tune down, and make it sound a bit more like the original Tommy Emmanuel video. So that's all there is to say. No extras are needed. Guitar in standard tuning, and all you need is a regular pick or a flat pick to get started. So here we go. There's only 3 sections because the intro and the outro are quite similar, or they at least use the exact same chord shape, and then there's a verse and a chorus. So there's not really that much to explain. Let's hope I can wrap this one up in a bit shorter time than I usually do for the tutorial videos. I will, during the tutorial videos, after explaining each section, switch over to my lower tuned guitar to give you a sense of what it sounds like if you play it on a down tuned guitar. Okay, that's all there's to say. Let's go, let's head into it. Here's the intro. That's all. So as you can see, it works around one basic chord shape, and it's a bit of a stretch. So you're ending up with the index finger on the 5th fret of the high E string, the ring finger on the 8th fret on the B string, and the pinky on the 9th fret of the G string. We're starting out with 2 harmonics at the 7th fret of the low E string and the 7th fret of the A string, and then we're playing quite in a sort of free time sense of timing those 3 notes of the chord shape I mentioned earlier. So 2 harmonics and then exactly the same thing. Really important that you keep those harmonics ringing out as you're playing the arpeggio on top. Take your time for this part, so really use some pauses for dramatic effect. So playing those 2 harmonics. So really take your time. There's 2 options for the harmonics. You can either play them with the ring finger and then add in the arpeggio. Play them again with the ring finger. and adding the arpeggio again. If your hands are large enough, you can, as I did in the intro, even play them with the middle finger. So 2 harmonics, the arpeggio, and while keeping down the chord shape, adding in the 2 harmonics again. And that way you won't have to move anything at all. The next group is going to use a bit of a rhythmic displacement. You're going to play a melodic group of 3 in a rhythm of 4. This is what it sounds like. So you're playing an open string, and yet again, every time that same chord shape. These aren't triplets, these are meant as 8th notes, so this is what it sounds like if I count along, so you get a bit of a sense of the timing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the next bar, this continues. I don't know if it's a mistake. Tommy plays the top A note 2 times before continuing, but it sounds like it's not really intentional. It sounds like a bit of a small mistake. Even Tommy makes those, and he recuperates immediately. But you can also see in the video that the audio and the image aren't really in sync at that point. So I'm guessing this was a second take or something that he filmed afterwards. So, but the second time around on the video, you can hear this. Everything else is exactly the same, only the very first time he's playing that top A note 2 times. And that's where it ends. So you can see in the tablature 1 extra low E note, that's sort of an upbeat into the next bar. That's the whole intro. Let me play it one time on the standard tuned acoustic, then we'll switch over to the lower tuned acoustic. That's the whole intro. Now let's switch over to the lower tuned acoustic. Remember, this is a standard jumbo guitar. There's no baritone, tuned down to a low C tuning with a 13 gauge string set on it. Here we go. Okay, so there you are. That's how it sounds if you play it down with a lower tuning. Let's head into the verse. Here we go. I'm gonna play it one time for you in its entirety, then I'm gonna come back and explain. And then we're already off into the chorus section. Now, as you can see, the first part and the second part of the verse are almost identical. Only the very last bar is different leading into the chorus. So let's have a look at that part. We're starting out with an E minor chord, a small bar across the second fret on the A string and D string. And then you're adding in the pinky on the 4th fret of the D string, moving over to the 5th fret. Quite a few times Tommy actually picks this little part, but there are also a few moments where he will play this as a slide, just sliding up to the 5th fret. You can see what works for you, but both options are equally good. Then, as soon as Tommy ends up on the pinky, he releases that low E minor bar and moves the index finger to the 2nd fret on the G string. And then finishing off the melody line with an open B string and an open E string. Reason why Tommy lets go of this E minor bar chord is, I'm guessing, because of that low baritone tuning. Actually is quite messy if you leave a lot of open or bass notes ringing out. So I'm guessing that's why he removes the rest of the chord. You could try to let it ring out as long as possible if you're playing a standard tuned guitar. One more time, that bar in its entirety. Finishing off on a low E string, and then you're going to hold down that chord shape, pinky on the 5th fret, index finger on the 2nd fret, and strum the chord. I've notated the number of strums as I hear them on the YouTube video down below in the tablature, but you can make this up as you go along. Tommy doesn't play the strums 2 times exactly the same way. One time it's only 1 strum, then the 2nd time it's 3, then the 4th time it's only 2 again. So this is how you feel it at that moment, but make sure you don't rush. Make sure that the pace of the song keeps nice and even, and it's rather slow. So. And one thing to watch out for is to keep the strumming light. Don't dig in, it's just something that keeps the pulse going, but it's not necessary to really dig in on those chords. So very, very light strumming. Then to a C chord. And it's the same melody, but Tommy doesn't shift over to the 5th fret, it's a middle finger. 3rd fret on the A string, then to an open D string, index finger, 2nd fret on the E, pinky, 4th fret on the F sharp, all on the D string. Then to an open G string, adding in the index finger on the 2nd fret, all while holding down the middle finger and the pinky at the same time. Again, open B string, open E string. The whole part right behind each other. And keep in mind, you're holding down each last note on each string you are playing. So C chord keeps ringing out the whole time. The F sharp keeps ringing out. The A keeps ringing out, and then the 2 open strings. Those first 4 bars back to back. Then moving to an A minor chord. Sometimes Tommy likes to play that open A bass note before the beat, sometimes on the beat. I'm going to show you the 2 variations right away, but you're moving over to an open A string and then a little open string lick. So what happens is open A string, ring finger, 7th fret on the D string, and then sort of a crisscross movement, so you always be playing an open string and then back to a fretted note. So open A string, 7th fret on the D string, then open B string, 5th fret on the G string, to an open E string, after the open E string, adding in the pinky on the 8th fret of the B string. At this point, it's already quite a wide chord voicing you have. You'll be letting go of the index finger and soon after that the ring finger. So moving the index finger from the 5th fret on the G string to the 5th fret on the high E string. And then releasing the ring finger from the 7th fret to hammer on the 7th fret on the high E string. Make sure that the pinky keeps ringing out. You make sure you hold this down, otherwise it gets a bit too staccato, as they would say, the correct Italian musical term. So everything would start very choppy if you don't keep that pinky down. So this makes everything blend together. One more time. Note that the low A string is also still ringing out. So Tommy does this a lot, hammering onto the 7th fret and then hitting or picking the same note again and really pulling off quite quickly. Back to the pinky, then to the index finger. 5th fret on the B string, sliding down to the 3rd fret. And ending up on an open E string, and that concludes the whole open string lick. And then just 2 bars of open E minor strumming. One more thing about that open string lick, mind the rhythm when you're playing it through. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So as you can see, there are a few in the beginning. It's just 8 notes leading up to the top note, and then there are a few longer melody notes that you have to keep ringing out across the beat. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then back to the chords. One more thing I need to address concerning the open string lick is when you're coming down from the C chord, you can start on the beat and or you can start before the beat. And that way there will be a little pause in between the open A string and the A on the 7th fret of the D string. Tommy changes this around as he sees fit. So one time he starts on the beat, next time he starts before the beat. Again, this is something that you can choose as you're playing the song, how you want to add in that little variation. But you're basically done with the verse, because the second time around it's completely identical. It's exactly the same thing except for the very last chord. So I'm going to play the second part of the verse now, but as you will see, it's exactly the same fingering. This is the only thing that is changing, is you're moving to a C diminished chord, middle finger 3rd fret on the A string, ring finger 4th fret on the D string, index finger 2nd fret on the G string, and pinky 4th fret on the B string. If you've ever played a diminished chord, this is nothing new. This is almost the standard way of playing them, and you will be strumming this. So a triplet. As you're landing on the 3rd beat, this is a very slow slide going up to the 6th fret. And so on and so on. So I'm only playing this because it leads into the next chorus. Now, before I move along, I'm going to play this section one more time, really slowly, on the standard tuned acoustic, and then I'm going to switch over to the lower tuned jumbo guitar again, so you can hear what it sounds like in a lower tuning. Here we go. That was it in standard tuning. Let's see how that works up to speed on a lower tuned guitar. And then we're heading into the chorus. Now I'm going to start by using that last bar of the verse just because it leads into the chorus. I'm going to play it one time through, then I'm going to come back and give you the explanation. That's the chorus. Now let's have a look at how that works. So as I already explained, you're ending the verse with the C diminished chord on the 3rd fret, sliding up to the 6th fret. That's the first beat of the chorus. You're basically arpeggiating the chord and strumming a few times just to fill out the bar. Ending up on a low E bass note right in front of the beat. So that melody note is on the first beat, the bass note is right in front of the first beat. So what happens there is you're playing thirds all the way through, 5th fret on the B string with the with the ring finger, and then the index finger, 3rd fret on the high E string. Sliding up, and a bit of a sneaky technique, you could slide up to this fingering, ring finger at the 8th fret and index finger at the 7th fret. So that would mean that you have to alter the fingering going up. So from 1 fret in between to no frets in between. I actually add in the middle finger as I'm sliding up. So I'm ending up. There's no need to overthink this. As I'm sliding up, I'm just adding in the middle finger. So I'm ending up in this fingering. There's no exact position. There is no exact timing to add in the note. If you add it in when you're going up, it actually won't even matter to the ear. You won't hear when that middle finger is being added, as long as you don't add it in before you're starting the slide. So sliding in and adding in that middle finger along the way. If that feels weird, then just slide up using the index finger and the ring finger only. But this feels more alien to me, ending up in this fingering than ending up in this fingering. 2. Index finger 5th fret on the high E string. Ring finger 7th fret on the high E string. You can view this as a part of a D chord. Back to the fingering we started with. So with the low E bass note underneath. And you're repicking that low E bass note a few times. Again, Tommy does this different every single time. What I usually do is this. So once I arrive with the slide in thirds up here, then I repick and down one more time after the A and D in F sharp. So one more time, really slowly. And then moving to another C diminished chord, but this time you're playing a little bar across the 2nd fret because you need the high F sharp. Basically the same trick you used the first time. And a big slide up to the 6th fret. Timing is a little bit different, but then again, it's different every single time Tommy plays through the song. So the only thing that's always the same is that in this part, the previous time, Tommy initiated the slide on the 3rd beat and ended up on the 6th fret on the 4th beat. This time he always pulls back the timing just a little bit in order to land on the 6th fret on the 1st beat of the next bar. Open E string. I guess he's using an open E string to transfer to the higher position. You could also play the 9th fret with the middle finger, but I actually think he's just using an open E string. A nice little arpeggio part with only the melody moving on top, so you're playing an open A string. 10th fret with the ring finger on the D string, middle finger 9th fret on the G string, open B string, and then the melody will move on top of that. So you're starting out with the pinky, 10th fret, moving to the index finger, 8th fret, moving with the index finger to the 7th fret, and ultimately with the pinky to the 10th fret on the B string. So that's the simple version of the melody. Tommy, as always in slower tunes, moves the melody around a little bit, but this is sort of the most constant thing I hear him play. So I always hear that melody note on the high B note on the 7th fret of the E string popping up 2 times. As you can see, I'm trying hard not to pick that open A string too much, because again, on the down-tuned guitar, on the baritone guitar, this low bass string keeps ringing out so clearly and so long that it's not necessary to pick it a few different times. This might be different on a standard tuned acoustic. So if you're playing this song without the lower tuning, then I would probably opt. So when playing this on a normally tuned guitar, you might want to add in that low A open bass note a few more times than Tommy does on the baritone guitar, just because this doesn't ring out as clearly and as long as that lower tuned guitar. And then we're moving into the last two bars of the verse, and this is centered around small chord shapes. You're starting out with an E minor chord, ring finger 9th fret on the G string, middle finger 8th fret on the B string, index finger 7th fret on the high E string. You might recognize this from just the standard root 5th fret E minor bar chord. Moving to a D chord, index finger 5th fret high E string, and then pinky and ring finger both on the 7th fret of the G and B string. To a C shape, a C chord shape, excuse me, derived from the root bar chord with the root on the 6th string. So ring finger 10th fret on the D string, middle finger 9th fret on the G string, index finger 8th fret on the B string, and then we're moving this down yet again to a diminished chord. The ring finger stays where it is, and both the index finger and middle finger move down 1 fret from C to C diminished. And this is played in exactly the same way each time, at least the very first time Tommy plays it. So you're playing the melody note in front of the beat, usually in thirds. So 2 strings at the same time. Make sure this is always an upstroke with the pick. This will make it a lot easier. So back to the highest melody note and then switching over to the next chord and playing again those 2 top notes with an upstroke. It makes it a lot easier if the last note you play is a downstroke and then an upstroke on the 2 notes on top. And it's always exactly the same thing. Really slowly. And this is repeated 2 times. And that's the whole chorus section. So especially that last part, it might take some time getting that up and down movement going. So upstroke, down, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Let's see how that works together. The whole verse really slowly and then again to the down-tuned acoustic guitar. To the lower tuned acoustic. Okay, so that was the lower tuned acoustic. Now, everything that's left is all repetition. There are a few fills that are added in. I'll explain those as well. And there's a little bit of difference between the outro and the intro, but I'll address that as soon as we get there. So let me play the next verse one time, and I'm going to add in a few little fills and explain them along the way. That was the first fill, just a hammer-on lick to the C bass note. So open A string, hammering on to the second fret with the index finger, and then to the third fret with the middle finger. So this is what I see Tommy play on the video. There's just a camera change going on. So he plays the lick or the melody line, then sort of a little blues bend on that third fret, and he's actually removing every other finger, so he's not keeping down the pinky or the index finger at all. And then ending up on an open strum. Then they're already transferring to the next chorus. So that's all, only the one little hammer-on lick moving up to the C chord, and that one on the E minor chord. Everything else is the same, although Tommy plays around with the melody, plays around with the placement of the chords, but on slower tunes like this, it's inevitable, he always does something else. So let's get to work on this and then add in some variations later on. Then we're off to the chorus, and the next chorus is, spoiler alert, nothing different from the first one except for the very, very last chord. Here we go. Here's the difference. Instead of moving down both fingers one fret like we did earlier, he only moves the index finger down below. So instead of getting a C diminished chord, you're now getting a C chord with a flattened fifth. So and then plays that second note, drops down an instant later, and is played as a separate melody note. And into the last verse. One more time. So, no difference here. Moving down the index finger, one fret. Then the middle finger, playing it separately as a melody note, and then into the last verse. One time up to tempo, and then I'm going to switch over to the last verse right away. last verse. Just a few small differences. So we're starting again. Same melody on the E minor chord, and then instead of the hammer-on lick, he's playing the same notes, open A string, index finger 2nd fret on the A string to the 3rd fret with the middle finger, but this time instead of a quick hammer-on, he's playing it as 2 8th notes just picked with the plectrum. Back to back, E minor chord, slows down on this part, index finger 3rd fret on the B string and an open E string. It's a D and an open E together, which is a bit of a clash, and then straight into the outro. Let me add those two together. So the very last verse, bass line, down, and so on and so on. So that's how the last verse and the intro are connected. So a clash between the 2 notes and then straight into the outro. Now the outro uses the same rhythmic displacement trick as we saw in the intro, so a melodic group of 3 in a rhythm of 4, but this time Tommy leaves out the index finger for the first 2 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. A bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The next 2 bars, Tommy adds in the index finger every other melodic part. So you play this little part, this little arpeggio, 1 time without the index finger, and then 1 time with, 1 time without, and that way it alternates between those 2, but again the same rhythmic movement, melodic group of 3, rhythm in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the most important thing to watch out for is not to play this as triplets. So don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 notes for each beat. This bar is repeated 2 times. So these 2 bars are 2 times exactly the same, totaling 4 bars, and then the very last 2 bars you're adding in the index finger and it won't leave the guitar anymore. Then we're just moving into a more straight arpeggio part. So the rhythmic displacement is gone. This feels a lot more logical timing wise. So if you tap along, you will find that the same note will always land on the beat and it's not displaced every single time. And you're ending up with an E note on the pinky, an open E string, index finger does leave, so sorry to have lied to you before, and then back to the pinky. Leave down the ring finger just to make sure that that note can ring out to an E minor chord. 1 time, the entire intro a bit slower so you can follow along. minor chord to round out the tune with. That's the whole tune. Now let's listen one more time how this outro sounds on the down tune acoustic, and you're completely ready to get your fingers around this tune. So there you go, the whole of Timberland. Have fun with this one and see you next time for another Tommy Emmanuel song. Bye bye.